Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a psychological revolution that basically turned everything on its head. It's the idea that our biggest fears, our daily habits, everything, isn't coming from some deep, hidden part of our minds, it's just learned. So let's jump in.
For the longest time, this question was a huge deal. It was a massive battleground that pretty much split the world of psychology in two. On one side, you had thinkers who were digging deep inside the mind, looking for answers in places we can't even see. But on the other side, a radical new idea that maybe, just maybe, the answers were all around us, right out in the open.
So on one side of this fight, you had what's called depth psychology. And the name kind of gives it away, right? The whole idea was that the behaviors we can actually see are just the tiny tip of the iceberg. Underneath the surface, they believed, were these massive, hidden forces in our unconscious, just churning away and driving everything we do. Okay, so while the Freudians were off searching for these deep, hidden conflicts, a completely new way of thinking popped up. It was called behaviorism, championed by a guy named John B. Watson. And he came along with this totally different idea. He basically said, hey, what if it's not that complicated? What if our behavior isn't about some secret internal drama, but it's just a direct response to what we learn from the world around us?
Now, to prove their pretty bold point that even a powerful emotion like fear is actually learned, the behaviorists conducted an experiment that is now super famous and honestly very controversial. This was their big moment to show, not just tell, that fear wasn't something we're born with. Nope, it was built.
So here's what they did. They paired something totally neutral, a little white rat, with something genuinely scary, this loud, clanging noise. And after doing that just a few times, bam, they had pretty much installed a phobia. For the behaviorists, this was the ultimate proof. Fear wasn't some deep, mysterious thing like the Freudians thought. It could simply be learned.
But here's where it gets really, really interesting. The fear, it didn't just stick to that one little rat. It didn't stay contained. It started to bleed out.
This is a big concept called stimulus generalization. Basically, little Albert's new fear of the white rat started spreading to anything that was even kind of similar, anything white and furry. All of a sudden, a Santa Claus mask or other furry objects were triggering that exact same fearful reaction. It's a perfect example of how one specific learned fear can spiral out into a much bigger phobia.
So this is a huge aha moment. If our behaviors and our fears are learned, while the behaviors figured, that means they can also be changed. And this idea gave birth to a whole toolkit for basically rewiring our own habits. And it's all based on these principles of what they called operant conditioning.
The main tools in this kit are all about reinforcement. And here's the most important thing to get. Reinforcement always aims to make a behavior happen more often. Now, it comes in two flavors. Positive reinforcement is the easy one. You add something good, like a reward for homework. But negative reinforcement is where people get tripped up. It is not punishment. It's about removing something bad. So think about it. The nagging finally stops the second you clean your room. See? That makes you more likely to clean your room next time. Both methods get you to do the thing more.
And there's this really clever little trick for using reinforcement that you absolutely already know. It's called the Premack principle, but you probably know it as Grandma's Law. The idea is just so simple. You use an activity someone already loves to do as the reward for doing something they, don't love doing. It's the classic, you can have dessert after you eat your vegetables.
But it's not just about the reward. The timing is absolutely crucial. You could get a reward on a fixed schedule, something predictable, like a paycheck. Or the reward could be totally variable and unpredictable. And the research is crystal clear that unpredictable, variable ratio schedule is by far the most powerful way to build a habit that sticks. The perfect example is a slot machine. You have no idea when it's going to pay out, so you just keep pulling the lever. That unpredictability is the secret sauce, and it's the engine behind everything from social media notifications to loot boxes in video games.
Okay, so what if you want to get rid of a behavior? If you just stop the reinforcement, a process called extinction, something really counterintuitive happens. The behavior will actually get worse before it gets better. It's called a response burst. It's like a temporary, desperate flare-up before the behavior finally gives up and fades away. Now, these principles of learning and reinforcement, they were so powerful they led to a truly revolutionary discovery. We could actually use them to get conscious control over parts of our biology that everyone thought were completely automatic, like totally on autopilot. It all started with these groundbreaking studies by Neil Miller. He showed that just by using rewards, you could train rats to deliberately change their own heart rate. I mean, think about that for a second. This idea just shattered the long-held belief that these bodily functions were completely beyond our control, and it blew the doors wide open for a whole new field.
And that field is the science of biofeedback. The whole idea is to use technology to give us a peek under the hood, a little window into our own internal states. By getting that real-time information, that feedback about what's going on inside you, you can actually learn to master your own self-regulation. It's literally like having a dashboard for your own body.
And today, the applications are just incredible. For instance, an EMG can track your muscle tension to help you learn how to relax. Thermal biofeedback can teach you how to raise your hand temperature to help prevent migraines. And EEG, or neurofeedback, even monitors your brain waves, training you to get into these really calm, focused states. It's amazing stuff.
And this brings us full circle, right back to where we started this whole thing, with little Albert and his learned fear of a harmless white rat. See, the story of behaviorism doesn't just end with identifying the problem. It also gives us the solution.
I just love the symmetry of this. You had John B. Watson, whose work with little Albert showed us the cause, that a phobia could literally be created. But then it was his colleague, Mary Cover Jones, who came along and wrote this incredibly empowering final chapter. She's the one who showed that learning could also be the cure.
And that, right there, is the ultimate promise of this entire way of thinking. What has been learned can be unlearned. It means we are not prisoners of our past conditioning. We aren't permanently defined by the fears and habits we've just happened to pick up along the way.
So the big takeaway here is this. If you think of your behaviors as a kind of script that's been written by your experiences, well, the good news is you're the one holding the pen. We all have the power to edit that script. So the final question is a pretty powerful one, isn't it? What will you choose to rewrite?